Good evening. This is Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. I want to welcome everyone to this evening's telephone town hall meeting. We're going to get started shortly. If you have a question that you would like answered or an issue that you want to raise tonight, please press 0 at any point and hold on the line, and we will try to get to as many people as possible. This is Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Welcome to tonight's telephone town hall meeting. I'm coming to you live from the House Office Building in Longworth, Washington, D.C. It's my honor and my privilege to represent each and every one of you in the United States Congress. There's a lot that continues to happen down in Washington, D.C., and we wanted to take the time to provide you with a briefing about some of the issues we continue to try and tackle on minimum wage, on health care, on unemployment insurance compensation, on comprehensive immigration reform, and the other challenges that are confronting us tonight. We also know that we live in a very dangerous world, and things to some degree are falling apart in Iraq, and I'd be very interested in hearing the views of you, those that I represent, in terms of what you think would be most appropriate for us to do related to this current crisis that we confront in the Middle East. We're going to get started in a moment or so. Please press 0 at any point in time so you can get in queue to ask your question or to raise any issue of concern to you related to what we're dealing with in Washington, as well as what we're dealing with in terms of the district community issues back home in Brooklyn and parts of Queens. Thank you for joining us this evening. This is the second telephone town hall meeting that I've held this year, and the sixth during my time as a member of the United States Congress. I really appreciate the opportunity both to serve you in the Congress and the House of Representatives, but to be able to communicate directly with as many people as possible in the context of these telephone town hall meetings so I can get a real sense of the issues important to you, as well as to communicate to the folks back at home as to the things that we're trying to work on. Earlier today on the floor of the House of Representatives, I spoke about the need for us to renew unemployment compensation for the long-term unemployed. There are more than 3 million Americans now who've been cut off from unemployment insurance. Many of those individuals are people that I represent in Brooklyn and Queens. I hear from you every time that I'm back at home. The Senate has passed an unemployment insurance extension. That took place on April 7th of 2014. And now it's time for the House of Representatives to act. And I tried to make that point earlier today because we find ourselves in a situation where we are leaving people on the battlefield of the Great Recession, individuals who are still trying to find work, but in the interim need a helping hand. Instead, there are many in the House majority that are slapping these Americans in their face, disrespecting the compassion of the American people, and we're going to continue to fight against that. Again, press 0 at any point, and we will get to as many calls as we can. We're going to start with Mrs. Cole from East Flatbush, who I believe has a concern about transportation and infrastructure in New York City. Ms. Cole, thank you for joining us. This is Congressman Jeffries. Tell me what's on your mind.
Well, I am very, very upset and discouraged about the road repairs that was promised to us by either the councilman or by yourself. Some major roads, particularly the Kings Highway and Flatlands Avenue, where I travel on very frequently, some of those roads need repairs badly. They just patch it at certain points, and then a few weeks later, it's messed up all over again. Our cars, our tires, everything is totally destroyed from those things. They do a part of the major roads, then the other part is totally undone and neglected.
Well, I appreciate that.
Back, and they never do come back.
I appreciate that concern. If you hold on the line, you can get us the specifics of the locations that are most problematic. Now, as you know, the road repair issue is one that falls within the jurisdiction of the City of New York, and we will certainly reach out to the New York City Department of Transportation and the New York City Sanitation Department. We were hit with a very rough winter. It did a lot of damage based on the snow and the subsequent salt to the roads. There were potholes all over the place, but you are right to be frustrated because at the end of the day, you and every other person who's on the line right now are taxpayers, and your tax dollars should go to ensuring that you can safely travel on roads throughout Brooklyn and throughout the city in a manner that does not do damage to your car and that allows you to get from point A to point B safely. And so we will definitely follow up on that issue. And if you can just hold on the line, give us the specifics of the particular streets that are of concern to you.
Full of shit.
We will certainly follow up.
Full of shit.
Oh, I got you. Thank you very much. We're going to go to Ms. Rosa Hirschbach
Yes.
from Ms. Hirschbach.
Yes.
Thanks for joining me today. This is Congressman Jeffries. What's on your mind?
Make sure I will gather my food stamps back.
Now, when were your food stamps taken away?
I don't know. It's not only for me. A lot of people was there. I was to complain.
Well, I understand, and I'm glad you raised the issue. I sit on the Budget Committee in the Congress, and so I've been involved in a lot of the debate and the discussion about the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is the technical name for the food stamp program. There's more than 50 million Americans who are food insecure or hungry, many of whom live in Brooklyn and parts of Queens that I represent and throughout New York City. 18 million of those individuals who are food insecure or hungry are children, and yet we've got a House majority that passed a bill that cut about $8 billion in assistance from the food stamp program. I voted against that bill because I thought it was inhumane, and I thought that it threatened to damage the people of New York City and poor or working families throughout the state and throughout the country. Unfortunately, a majority of my colleagues saw fit to pass that bill into law. Now, subsequent to the passage, the governor of the state, Andrew Cuomo, did step in and provide financing to ensure that the overwhelming majority of individuals who were at risk of losing supplemental nutritional assistance would actually be able to keep it. And as it relates to your particular case, if you hold on the line, we'd be pleased to check in. Generally, we're going to continue to fight the fight. In the Paul Ryan budget that exists right now, he has attempted to cut $125 billion from the food assistance program over the next 10 years. Now, that is just outrageous. It's draconian. It's reckless. And fortunately, we believe that because it has no Democratic support in the House and no Democratic support in the Senate, and the President doesn't support it, it's not going to go anywhere, and it won't be enacted into law. But I raise it to let you know that there are a lot of folks down here who are doing everything they can to balance this country's budget on the backs of working families, the poor, the sick, the afflicted, middle-class folks, and senior citizens. And I'm going to continue to fight against it. Thank you for joining us, and we're going to go to Mrs. Dolores Weller, who is coming to us from Canarsie, and I believe you have a question about foreclosure.
Yes.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, I just need to know what's the procedure because 2 years ago I tried to get the modification to lower my interest rate, and I got the runaround and I nearly lose my home, but unfortunately I'm still in there, still paying my bill. I just need the interest rate to go down, but they still give you the runaround and you can't get nowhere.
Well, I appreciate you raising it. First of First of all, no, thank you for raising that. And the frustration that you've expressed, unfortunately, is similar to the frustration expressed to me by many of the people that I represent. 3 of the neighborhoods in the congressional district I serve, Canarsie, where you live, East New York, and Bedford-Stuyvesant, have amongst the highest foreclosure rates in the state. And so I've worked a lot on this issue in trying to pull together both the State Department of Financial Services, which oversees banks at the New York State level, as well as the banks who are under some obligation, particularly those that have been forced to settle as a result of the reckless activity that they engaged in that led to the collapse of the economy, and to make sure that we can bring as many homeowners into a situation where you either get a modification, an interest rate change, in some instances a principal reduction, so we can keep you in your home. And so if you hold on the line, I will make sure that a staff member speaks with you. We'll get all your information, and we will figure out the bank that you are dealing with, and we will reach out to that bank directly. We'll also bring in some non-for-profit organizations that can provide some legal advice, guidance, and assistance in trying to make sure that we can get this particular bank that you're working with to do the right thing, because we know that in the aftermath of the collapse of the economy, that there was a bailout that these financial institutions received. We bailed out Wall Street, but we haven't bailed out Main Street. And that's been a particular source of frustration for a lot of people, as it should be. And we continue to fight that fight, in this instance, one person at a time. And so we look forward to intervening on your behalf. Thank you so much for calling. Again, press 0 at any point in time. If you've got a question, we're going to get to as many people as possible. We've got more than 2,000 people on the line right now from all over the district. I appreciate everyone taking the time out to hear from me. I'm coming to you live from Longworth, 1339 House Office Building here in the state capitol as your representative. We're going to go now to East New York. I believe we've got Miss Brenda Yeomans, who is on the line. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes. I'd like to know what is being done, or is there any new plans about the guns that's killing the innocent ones that's here in this neighborhood? I've lost a grandson at 15 years old, and just recently, 4 months ago, my son was a victim, and now he's paralyzed. He's only 39 years old, paralyzed from waist down. I mean, is there any new plans, or is there any way that, something can come up with an idea or something to get these guns off the street?
Well, I appreciate you raising it, and I'm sorry to hear about your recent tragedy. And it is one of the biggest problems that I confront in terms of the district that I represent. We've got gun violence issues in East New York, in Ocean Hill, Brownsville, and Bedford-Stuyvesant, parts of Canarsie, East Flatbush, as well as Coney Island. And so one of the things that I've been determined to do from the very beginning is to try to get the federal government more involved in preventing the flow of weapons into our communities. Because as you know, the overwhelming majority of guns used to commit crimes in neighborhoods like East New York and all across the city of New York weren't manufactured in our city or our state. They were purchased in parts of the Deep South, in Georgia, in Virginia, in Florida, as well as increasingly purchased in Pennsylvania, which borders us in the southern tier of New York and has very lax gun laws. In New York State, we've got very strong gun laws. By the way, the same problem that exists in terms of illegal guns coming into our city from other parts of the country is very similar to the fact that many of the guns used to commit violence in Chicago come from the neighboring state of Indiana, because Illinois has got strong gun laws, but Indiana has got very weak gun laws. In South Central Los Angeles, which is another community that's got very significant gun violence problems, most of the guns used to commit crime in South Central Los Angeles come from the neighboring state of Arizona. California's got strong gun laws. Arizona's got weak gun laws. And so I've continued to argue that we've got a national problem that requires a national solution, because we can enact good, tough gun laws in New York State, but we're being hurt by the fact that you've got states along the I-95 corridor in the Deep South and the neighboring state of Pennsylvania that essentially are importing these weapons of mass destruction into our communities, and then we get tragedies like the one that you spoke about. And so the approach has got to be twofold. We're going to continue to fight for legislation in the Congress. Now, the problem is we got a lot of Second Amendment lovers who misinterpret that particular constitutional provision and use it to exploit gun ownership opportunities, in my view, to the detriment of reasonable gun laws. But we're going to continue to fight the good fight. But in the interim, I recognize that I can't simply say, well, we're just going to wait until we can elect people with a greater degree of sensitivity, and until then nothing can be done, because the problem is people are continuing to be hurt, die, and be paralyzed. So what I've determined to do is to try and activate federal agency responsible for protecting us from gun violence, which is the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. And that is abbreviated as the ATF. And I've worked pretty closely with the ATF to date to encourage them in particular to look at higher crime neighborhoods throughout Brooklyn where we know the guns being used are coming in from other parts of the country, to stop the flow of weapons. So that when there's an argument or confrontation 20 years ago or 30 years ago, when it would be a fist fight, it escalates into gunplay and people get hurt. And so the ATF has been working closely with the new Brooklyn District Attorney, Ken Thompson, who I've also been speaking with, along with the NYPD, and you should expect to see a greater level of activity in terms of trying to stop the flow of guns into our communities until we can get some sensible gun laws passed in Congress.
Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate it. This is Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Thanks so much for joining us. We've got a lot of callers on the line, and we're going to get to as many questions as we can in the time that we have remaining. We are going to go to Ms. Lawson, who I believe has a question about security cameras. Thank you so much, Ms. Lawson, for joining us.
Okay, I just want to find out when we're going to get our camera in Linden Housing, because I heard that they started to install them. So are you going to put in all the projects here?
Yeah, so I appreciate you raising that. Generally, as a result of the tragedy that took place a few weeks ago when young PJ was killed tragically in that elevator, it sort of exposed the notion that NYCHA has not done everything that needs to be done in terms of getting security cameras put into place, even where funding existed. And the mayor, who I've spoken with personally on this issue, has indicated that he's committed to making sure that his administration does everything possible to increase the effort to implement and install security cameras throughout NYCHA developments across the city. And I will particularly inquire about Linden, as well as every other public housing development that I represent. And I represent amongst the highest concentration of public housing anywhere throughout the city and the nation. So this is a very important issue for me. I will note that the federal government in 2003 used to provide funding for security cameras, but in 2003, that funding was stopped, and so it put NYCHA in a very difficult situation. And it's ironic, one of the reasons why I wasn't here in 2003, but I assume that funding was cut off is because at the very same time, then President George Bush was sending troops into Iraq to chase weapons of mass destruction that did not exist, which is a big problem. because they're weapons of mass destruction that are killing our children each and every day in communities like those that I represent. And so it's a sad irony that the mistakes of the past are still continuing to haunt us in this country. But that said, I am working on legislation to try and increase access to funding for security cameras so that we can expedite their placement all across the district that I represent and indeed the city of New York. But I will specifically inquire about your particular situation. Thanks so much for joining us. This is Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Welcome to this evening's telephone town hall meeting. It's an honor and privilege for me to conduct these meetings. I'm so thankful that so many people have joined us today. In the time that we've got remaining, please press 0 at any point, and we will try to get to as many questions as we can. We are coming to you live from the House Office Building at Longworth, 1339. If you ever find yourself in Washington, D.C., please come by to see me. I love seeing constituents and people from back home. We're going to go to Miss Judith Hall, who I believe has a question about affordable housing, a very important topic coming to us from the Fort Greene part of the district. Ms. Hall, good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening. I live in the Fort Greene section, and if you notice, we're being priced out like crazy down here. But what I've been looking at lately is the buildings they're putting up, and they're setting it aside affordable housing apartments. But it comes out if you make more than $33,000, you can't get in. The other one, you have to make $70,000 to get in. What happened to people in between that pricing? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, listen, I agree with you, and I understand your frustration. First of all, to take a step back, we're coming out of 20 years of the Bloomberg and Giuliani administration where essentially, particularly during the last 12 years, a luxury condominium explosion was unleashed on many communities, including a lot of the neighborhoods that I represent, in a way where the housing that was created and built generally was not being built for working families, middle-class folks, senior citizens, young people, and others. And the housing that was built, designated as affordable, was too restrictive in terms of the income ranges. And so a lot of folks who fall in the gap, and I appreciate you raising this, Mrs. Hall, because you're absolutely right. There are a lot of folks, working families, moderate income folks who help to turn many neighborhoods around that have then become attractive to folks from all over the world, become victims of their own success, and you begin to get pushed out. That's fundamentally unfair, and it's not the type of New York City that we should live in. Now, we do have a mayor, thankfully, who has pledged to create or preserve 200,000 units of affordable housing over the next 10 years. And he is also sensitive to the notion that there are a lot of people who fall into the moderate income or working family category where current affordable housing policies don't necessarily cover their situation. And so
that even with senior citizens also, because I'm a senior citizen, and
well, I
don't
agree.
even have anything for us.
Well, specifically in terms of the senior citizen issue, we need to create more senior citizen housing. And
correct. I agree with you 100% on that.
Particularly because, you have seniors who have worked hard throughout their lives, and many of whom may find themselves on a fixed income related to Social Security or pension that they may have, and can't afford constantly escalating rents. And so we certainly will work on this issue. Now, if you hold on the line, I'd be happy to make sure that our office follows up on some of the affordable housing initiatives that currently exist to see if we can find one that makes sense for you under the current law. And I appreciate you raising the issue, and we're going to continue to fight hard. Affordable housing is a top priority for the city. It's a top priority for me. We're going to go now to Mr. Damon Kennebrew, who's coming to us from Bedford-Stuyvesant, who I believe has a concern about homeless veterans.
Good evening. I'm Damon Kennebrew, and thank you for an opportunity to speak to you, Congressman.
Certainly.
And my issue is that of the military, veterans, the homeless. We have more homeless veterans in Kings County than any other locale in this country, literally in the thousands of homeless veterans. And the recent shock to our government again, with the exposure of what was happening in the VA system, with us not getting the services that we're requesting in a timely manner, that's the concern that I'm spending my senior years working on, is finding out ways to increase the requirements that are being placed on the VA system and the Department of Defense to take care of our veterans, our homeless veterans. And this means testing that they place in front of us now is a sham, because for those of us who raised our hands 30 and 40 years ago or before to serve this country, and now they tell us we don't qualify for the benefits that were promised us then. So, Your Honor, we're prepared, and I'm a member of Bedford-Stuyvesant, the Black Veterans for Social Justice. We're prepared to do whatever needs to be done because our government has let us down. And
well, thank you so much for your service and for raising this very important issue. Black Vets for Social Justice is a great organization, and all veterans obviously have done so much to sacrifice for us, to fight hard in many instances, in very tough places, in some instances folks who have died in order that we can be free. George Washington once made the observation a long, long time ago that the willingness of individuals, of younger Americans, to serve in foreign wars, no matter how just those foreign wars, will in large measure be based on how we have treated others who have gone to fight for this country in the past. And so it is an imperative for us to make sure that we treat veterans justly and fairly, and make sure that those particularly who have fallen on hard times, homeless veterans, get the support and the resources needed. The situation that has unfolded based on what came out of the Arizona situation is a travesty as it relates to the care that some veterans were not adequately receiving. It now provides us with an opportunity, given the spotlight that has been shined upon it, to make sure we can reform the Veterans Affairs Department and focus resources in a way that ensures that those who served us in foreign wars, in Vietnam, and most recently in Iraq and Afghanistan, get all of the treatment and the resources and the care that you deserve. And I look forward to working with Black Vets for Social Justice and all veterans groups across this very diverse congressional district that I'm blessed to represent on this issue. We're going to go now to Teresa Alott. Yes.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for joining us. What's on your mind?
Yes. I wanted to know what's going on with the immigration laws and the Caribbean people, because my brother and I were discussing this, and we noticed, and we've read, so many times that they deport the Caribbean people, in droves, and we just wanted to know why and what's going on, and I know too for South American. So we just wanted to know what's going on and, why.
Well, no, thank you very much for raising it. It's a very important issue, and we know that New York City is a city of immigrants. One of the reasons why we are, in my view, the best city in the world is because people come from all over the country, from the Caribbean, from Europe, South Asia, from Africa, from all over the world, in ways from Latin America, and then contribute, work hard, to make us stronger. And so I've long since maintained that members of Congress from New York City are best positioned to articulate to everyone else down here in Washington, D.C., why it's important to ensure that we can continue to open up our borders in a reasonable, lawful way to make sure that people who want to excel continue to have that opportunity in America. Now, the Comprehensive Immigration Reform Bill that passed the Senate last year, I believe, currently has the votes to pass in the House of Representatives. But the leadership, Speaker John Boehner, as well as others, continue to refuse to bring it to the floor of the House of Representatives for a vote. And there are many who are concerned that given the recent loss of the House Republican Majority Leader Eric Cantor, that even though the votes do exist, if the bill was brought to the floor, there would be a reluctance to do so this year, and that's quite unfortunate. However, I say to everybody on this call, and I always tell the people that I represent at home whenever I'm in Brooklyn or in Queens, that I am confident that comprehensive immigration reform will be a reality sooner rather than later, because there are a variety of groups. The Chamber of Commerce, which is the group that represents business interests all across the country, is supportive of comprehensive immigration reform. The Catholic Church is supportive of comprehensive immigration reform. The high-tech industry in this country, Google, Microsoft, these entities that are part of the innovation economy, they all support comprehensive immigration reform. And so it's an extraordinary coalition that has come together to support a policy that we believe will ultimately be good for the country, because the current immigration system is broken. And if we can continue to attract people from all over the world, and we can allow people who are currently in this country but are undocumented to have a pathway toward legalization and citizenship in a manner that is fair, that requires people to pay back taxes, to demonstrate an employment history, and then to allow them to be productive citizens of our society in a lawful way, ultimately that is good for the country, and that's why I'm confident that we will prevail at the end of the day. Thanks so much for your call. We're going to go now to Miss Arlene Brenner, who I believe is coming to us from the wonderful Brighton Beach neighborhood that I represent. Miss Brenner, are you on the line?
I'm here, and I'm so happy to talk to you. I don't know if you're aware of the struggle we're having with our boardwalk, keeping it wood instead of concrete, and how we have learned that the shoreline is our first line of defense against storms like Sandy. And just briefly to explain to you the destruction that the concrete caused is our main concern. Where there was no concrete on the wooden boardwalk, which is a half a block from the concrete boardwalk, there were 3 to 6 inches of sand. Where the concrete boardwalk was, there was 10 feet of sand. The beach where the concrete was moved out into the street because concrete increases the ocean surges, so that 1.5 miles past the boardwalk, the streets were destroyed. Coney Island Hospital is still not back since Hurricane Sandy because the concrete is on Ocean Parkway. So this is our concern here, and our councilmen are standing behind us. The comptroller, they've written to the mayor, Traeger and Deutsch, you may be familiar with them, to our mayor to beg him to please not allow the new commissioner and Brooklyn Commissioner Jeffries to please not turn our safety into concrete. Are you familiar with all of this?
I am, and I really appreciate you raising this issue and your active advocacy. I am prepared to join council members Traeger and Deutsch in terms of the position that they've taken, and I will speak to Commissioner Jeffrey no relation, but the commissioner for the Parks Department on this issue. And I believe, as my grandmother used to say, the proof is in the pudding. And as you just pointed out, the reality is, post-Superstorm Sandy, there was a greater degree of damage that was done in the areas where the concrete had been in place as opposed to the traditional boardwalk
and we
wood.
have so much evidence on this. We have pictures of the 10 feet of sand, and it's not up to Kevin Jeffries. It's the new City Parks Commissioner who
Absolutely. And I will be in contact with both the mayor's office as well as the new Parks Commissioner on this issue.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Seeing you back in Brighton Beach, and thanks for all your advocacy on this issue. This is Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Please continue to press 0. We've got the opportunity to take a few more calls if you've got a question or an issue that you want to raise. I'm so thankful for everyone who's joined us today. We've had more than 2,000 people on the line from all over this wonderfully diverse, gorgeous mosaic of a district that I represent. I'm coming to you live from Washington, D.C., the state capital, the United States Capitol, the place that you sent me to represent you, and each and every day I'm trying to work hard to justify the confidence that you've placed in me. We've got on the line now Ms. Glennie Chambly from East New York, St. Paul's Community Baptist Church. Good evening.
Good evening, and namaste, Congressman. My question is about Social Security. I'm glad you said most of us have worked hard all of our lives. I've gotten to that stage now where I qualify for Social Security, and I'm appalled that it's trying to be cut or reduced.
Well, I appreciate you raising that point, and you're absolutely right. Now, the good news is, despite the fact that Paul Ryan and the boys, as I often refer to them, who've never met a social insurance safety net program that they like, and unfortunately blame the nation's financial condition on so-called entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare, for instance, when in reality, the debt situation that we find ourselves in right now is as a result of the reckless policies of the Bush administration, the tax cut in 2001 that was not paid for, the tax cut that benefited the wealthy and the well-off in 2003, the giveaway to the pharmaceutical industry, the war in Iraq, chasing weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist and that to this day continues to demonstrate itself to be a disaster, the war in Afghanistan that wasn't prosecuted well, and the collapse of the economy that resulted from the lack of regulation. If you take all of those things together, whenever you hear some of my colleagues down here in Washington, Glennie, talking about doom and gloom as a result of the future debt and the deficit, it's as a result of those things that I just talked about. It has nothing to do with Social Security. Social Security is a completely solvent program. And so we're going to continue to make clear that there's this false narrative that we've got to reform Social Security in order to put our nation on a firm financial footing. Ronald Reagan himself made the argument in a debate in 1984 that Social Security has nothing to do with the deficit. It was true in 1984, and it's true 30 years later in 2014, if I've got my math correct. And the bottom line is, despite the effort last year to try and change the Social Security benefits, it failed. We fought it, and this year it has not been brought up again. And so that's the good news, that I think the message has been received, that the votes do not exist to in any way touch Social Security. And every time I'm at home and I speak to the wonderful seniors that I represent, everyone makes sure that I know that I'm down here in Washington to tell people to keep their hands off of Social Security, because the bottom line is, it's not a giveaway program. You and everyone else paid into that program throughout your entire life. You worked hard, and all we're trying to do is to keep the promise that you'll get the return on the money that you paid into the system while working hard. And so we're going to keep that fight up, but we are on firm, substantive, and factual ground, and I'm confident that we will continue to be able to prevail. And so I look forward to seeing you soon. This is Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. We've got a few moments remaining as we wind down this evening's telephone town hall meeting. It's great that so many of you have joined us. It's my honor and my privilege to represent you down here in Washington, D.C. We try and do these telephone town hall meetings as often as I can when I'm down in D.C. to make sure that we can communicate with you some of the things that we're working on down in Washington, most importantly, to hear about your questions and your concerns. We've got Ms. Sharon Dawkins, who is on the line, who I believe has some issues that you want to discuss related to flooding and perhaps the sewer infrastructure. Ms. Dawkins, thanks for joining us.
Yes, you're welcome. Yes, we're having a great problem here in Canarsie. Almost every time it rains, we have flooding in the basement. And things have seemed to be getting worse.
Well, I appreciate you raising that. I'm sorry, did you have another point?
Yes, we would like to know how would this problem be solved, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, Superstorm Sandy really did expose an underlying infrastructure problem in many neighborhoods that I represent. In Canarsie, in East New York, in Howard Beach, in Coney Island. In Seagate, there is a significant sewer infrastructure problem. And the system is strained in a manner that is adversely impacting the quality of life of yourself and many other residents that I represent. I recently held a Congress on Your Corner event, and the most significant issue that was presented to me was the sewer infrastructure. And everywhere that I go, particularly in the neighborhoods that I represent that are adjacent to bodies of water, whether that's Jamaica Bay or the Atlantic Ocean or Fresh Creek or the Patagonia Basin, you've got people who've got this sewer infrastructure problem. So what I've decided to do is that we're going to convene a town hall meeting and a speak out on this issue within the next 30 to 45 days. We're going to bring all of the relevant city agencies to the table, which means the Department of Transportation, the Department of Sanitation, the Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, as well as the Army Corps of Engineers. We're going to give residents from throughout the congressional district an opportunity to put the issue on the table so we can get it all documented. And then myself, along with my colleagues in the City Council and the State Legislature, who I bring together, are going to forcefully advocate for a major sewer infrastructure overhaul, because ultimately that's what needs to happen, because you can't continue to be put in this situation where you've got a high level of anxiety, and I know there are others on the line who feel the same.
It's very stressful. Every time it rains now, we have to have a pump to be pumping out the water, and sometimes it flows over. It's getting too much now.
Absolutely, yeah, no, it's very stressful, and I
am not a young person. We are not young people, and it's hard to deal with, you know.
Well, you sound young and alive, but I understand exactly what you're saying to me, and we are going to stay on top of it. I'll let you know when that town hall meeting, it's going to be an in-person town hall meeting when I'm back home in the district, takes place. We're going to need everybody to come out, and we'll have all of the relevant agencies together there at the table, and then we're going to push forcefully to make sure that we get some systematic infrastructure changes put underway. And I will personally raise the issue with Mayor de Blasio the next opportunity I get. So thanks so much for joining us. We're going to go to the issue of unemployment insurance, which is something that I raised earlier in the call. I know many of you who are on the call are concerned, and I want to thank Ms. Elena Baer for joining us, and tell me what's on your mind.
Thank you. I'm an attorney, and I'm unemployed from January, and my unemployment insurance expires on July. So I don't know what to do, and I cannot find a job. Unfortunately, the market is not so good. So I just wanted to find out what about the law which maybe will extend the unemployment insurance.
Well, thank you for raising that. And, you know, we continued earlier today, as I mentioned, I spoke on the floor of the House of Representatives on this very issue, and I tried to make the point that we've got more than 3 million Americans who are long-term unemployed, who've been cut off because of the refusal of some callously in the House of Representatives to extend unemployment insurance. Now, never in our modern history have had a situation where the unemployment rate for job seekers without work for more than 6 months is approximately 35% of the overall unemployed population. That's an alarmingly high number. And in the past, whenever the number was over 30% of job seekers having been unemployed for 6 months or more, Congress has acted because we're in an emergency. And we've got Americans who are being left on the battlefield of the Great Recession, forced out of work, and because of the situation with the job market, unable to find it. And it's unacceptable, the situation that you find yourself in, and I understand that, and I take that to heart. And that's why each and every day that I'm here, it's voices and stories like the ones that you're telling me today, which is going to continue to lead me to fight hard to press the Republicans into eventually backing down and extending unemployment. The Senate has acted. The problem is we got a group in the House of Representatives that continue to behave as obstructionists. I'm sorry, I can't say it any clearer than that. Now, in the interim, we'd be happy to work with you on trying to identify some opportunities for employment in areas that match your skill set. And if you hold on the line, we'll make sure we get your information, and we'll work on eventually trying to find you with or match you up with an employment opportunity that will allow you to provide for your family. But we will continue to fight on the unemployment insurance point, and I appreciate you coming on the line today to raise it. This is Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We've got time for about one or two more calls before we wind up, and we're going to go to Miss Nadine Davis, who I believe has a question about Section 8.
Hello, Mr. Jeffries, and thank you for taking my call. And I think telephone conferences are a good idea. My question is that New York seems to be falling deeper and deeper into debt. We are the only state now that is refusing Section 8 to our citizens here in New York. That's my first question. Would that be restored? And my second question is that we have been dropping Social Security funds, and the Social Security amount we get each year is getting lesser and lesser. We really do need more than 7% hike each year. Is there going to be a change in that? Because we need to keep up with each year. It's just not good to be going backwards. Can anything be done about this?
Well, thank you for raising both of those points. Now, in terms of Social Security, we want to continue to make sure that, particularly in high-cost jurisdictions, of which New York City is one, we know that it's very expensive to live in New York City. It's the greatest city in the world, but increasingly difficult for seniors and for working families, middle-class folks, and young people to be able to afford to live in our wonderfully diverse city. That's a problem because we can't become a city for the wealthy and the well-off, and one of the ways to do it is to make sure that Social Security payments continue to keep up with cost of living increases, and I will certainly continue to fight for that. In terms of Section 8, which is one of the federal government's affordable housing programs, in the previous fiscal year, when sequestration took effect, it's a word that I'm still trying to figure out how to spell some days, but that we know sequestration was very harmful, took $85 billion out of the federal budget, impacted the budget of the Department of Housing and Urban Development and the Section 8 program. We've been able to restore some of those sequestration cuts and increase the availability of funding for Section 8 slots. We haven't been able to do it to the degree to meet every demand that's out there in New York City because the demand is high. But the good news is we are moving it back in the right direction, as a result of a budget agreement that we were able to reach in December and January earlier this year. And we've got a new administration that is sensitive to the need to provide affordable housing. So I expect that Section 8 funding is going to continue to move in the right direction, and that's an absolute necessity in order to make sure.
Oh yes, because we are the only state now that is not supplying Section 8 to, the needs of and the demands of the citizens here in New York. So I'm just kind of worried about that.
That is because New York City has become so expensive. It's always been one of the 2 or 3 more expensive cities in the country, along with San Francisco and Boston, and we've got the highest population. So we definitely will continue to work on that issue. Thank you so much for raising it. We're going to go now to our final caller for today's telephone town hall meeting. If I was not able to get to you, please hold on the line, and we will have a staff member speak directly to you, or you can leave your information with us, and we will get to your question personally with a response and or a resolution. So we're going to go now to Mr. Rodney Dembert to close us out on this evening's telephone town hall meeting, coming to us from Brownsville, who I believe has a question about the NYPD and public safety. Mr. Dembert? I think we may have lost Mr. Dembert. His question was about experienced police officers and why can't we get them into some of the more troubled neighborhoods in the city of New York, and we will continue to work on that issue. And in fact, Police Commissioner Bratton recently announced a program to partner rookie police officers with veteran officers who've got experience in the community, and I totally support that program and look forward to making sure that it is successful. We're going to go to Ms. Kimberly Walker. This is Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Thanks so much for coming on the line, and tell me what's on your mind.
Hi, how are you? Over the summer, like the house that I'm living in, and I'm in East New York, the house that I'm living in is in foreclosure, and so we decided to look for a house. And I had a pre-approval, and basically the whole summer I was trying to, find homes. And they had like many homes in Queens that were like in the 100,000, range. And whenever I called, I just got the runaround. I mean, they would never show me the place. They would always give me like homes that cost $300,000, and they knew that I couldn't afford it because it was over my pre-approval. And they was basically allocating all of those homes for investors or contractors, and they don't give like regular people the opportunity to buy these homes, and it's not fair. And I think something should be done, because regular people should be able to buy a low-cost home and fix it up, as opposed to just buying high-priced homes that you have to fix up.
Well, first of all, you're absolutely correct. And I appreciate you raising it, and I'm sorry about the situation that you found yourself in. And one, I'd like to work closely with you. We'll make sure that the housing specialist in my office can connect with you so that we are able to work on your situation, both in terms of the foreclosure situation and eventually to work on home ownership opportunities when you find yourself in a position to move forward. Unfortunately, given the nature of the real estate market in New York, there are a lot of people, some good actors, but some bad actors who look to take advantage of folks in ways that I think we need to continue to crack down on. I've partnered with current Attorney General Eric Snyderman, who's done some very good work on the issue of bad activity by some members of the financial services community and banks and other predatory lenders. But there's more work that needs to be done, particularly, as I mentioned earlier, in some of the neighborhoods that I represent where some of the activity has been egregious, taking advantage of individuals who just want to pursue the American dream, right? Which at the end of the day is home ownership. That's what America is all about. Baseball, apple pie, and home ownership at the end of the day is what America has been built upon. That home ownership dream for far too many people has turned into a nightmare, and it seems
Yes.
like that was the situation that you've confronted. We're going
Yes,
to
it was a nightmare.
an absolute nightmare. No one should find themselves in that situation, and we're going to continue to work closely on the broader issue of cracking down on these particular predatory individuals. So thank you for sharing your story. We will be in contact with you directly to work on your situation. I want to thank each and every one of you who's on the line now, who I wasn't able to get to. We will respond to you directly as long as you leave your information with us with a particularized response to the issue, concern, problem, or question that you raised. And I want to thank everyone else who's taken the time out to join us at this evening's telephone town hall meeting. I really appreciate all of you for continuing to participate in this civic activity, this telephone town hall meeting where I can, as your representative here in Washington, D.C., reach into your homes and communicate with you about the things that we're working on, and more importantly, hear from you about the things that you'd like to see out of the Congress, out of those who were charged with the sacred responsibility of representing you. So thank you so much, everyone. I look forward to seeing you when I am back at home, and God bless you, God bless the district, and God bless the United States of America.